Now we're going to move on to the education portion with our keynote and panel. So I would like to welcome to the stage Julianne Markow. Most of you may know her from her time at the San Diego Museum of Art or at the New Children's Museum. And over the past year, Julianne has been consulting with organizations on corporate social responsibility. And she currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer at the Voice of San Diego. And so whenever we were thinking about this year's theme of making the commitment, Julianne instantly came to mind with all of her posts and everything that she does on LinkedIn, the connections she has, and her dedication to making organizations more sustainable and more responsible. So Julianne, please share some of your experiences with us.
Good morning, and thank you, Jessica, and to the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. I see lots of familiar faces and friends from my years of working in the park. So thank you for inviting me to speak to you today, and I'm honored, delighted to be here as part of the conversation about making a commitment to sustainability. I do want to add my congratulations to the winners of today's awards. Those were really beautiful. So let me start by sharing my definition of sustainability. Many people and organizations think about it as environmental practices with a specific focus on resource conservation. And that is the primary focus of this morning's conversation. However, I prefer to look at sustainability, as Jessica mentioned, through a broader lens and to consider what it means for the whole organization. The dictionary defines sustainability as the ability to be maintained at a rate or level. So think about that for a minute. So if we apply that concept to an organization as a whole, it helps us to think about what policies and practices an organization should undertake to ensure its viability or sustainability into the future. How will an organization behave so that it is sustainable, has longevity, and will continue to be a vital contributing member of its community? When I have these conversations in the past with clients, of course we've talked about environmental practices, but we also examine their human resources policies and their engagement within the community where they're based, in this case in San Diego. Simply put, we evaluate the practices with regard to people, planet, and community. So why think about sustainability in this particular way? And why should organizations care about these subjects? Well, first of all, because your stakeholders care. Your clients care, your customers care, your employees care, all of you, and your investors and donors care. This is a subject that's becoming increasingly important across organizations. So let me just share a few quick statistics with you. Recent research shows that 81%, I repeat that, 81% of consumers believe that businesses should donate, advocate, or even change their operations to align with social and environmental needs. On an employee front, we know that 51% of employees are currently seeking a new position. I'm sure no one out here is doing that. But we also know that 85% of employees say that they are likely to stay longer with an organization that shows a high level of social responsibility. So if you're trying to keep that 51% of people within your organization, these kinds of practices are a great tool. Lastly, just looking on a global basis, investment in environmentally and socially responsible companies has grown exponentially in the last 20 years and now is close to $7 billion in the US alone. So all this indicates that there are good, solid business reasons to tackle sustainability. Indeed, we see that increasingly companies around the globe are realizing that we don't live in a world of limitless resources, and their stakeholders expect them to play a leadership role in addressing the challenges that we face as a planet. As Jessica mentioned, during the past year, I spoke with many companies throughout the San Diego area. Most of them are doing something in at least one or two areas of people, planet, and community. Many others are thinking about the issue, but maybe haven't quite taken any action yet. And there are only a few who are really taking a strategic approach to sustainability, like SDG&E, and thinking about how it can help their organizations grow. So don't get me wrong, doing something is better than doing nothing, but I'd argue, and this is what I discussed with my clients, that making a strategic commitment to sustainability is really better. It will drive better results in all three areas of people, planet, and community, and it will help your organization become sustainable. That is, maintain yourself as a going concern, and certainly that's what I'm always looking forward to. So, presumably all of you are here today because you have an interest in sustainability, either personally, professionally, or hopefully both. So I'm curious, raise your hands. How many of you work at an organization that has a sustainability plan in place already? So a fair number of people, great. And how many of you work at a place that's thinking about it, looking into the initiative, maybe has a committee? A few? Okay. And how many of you feel like the lone voice in the wilderness on this subject? Oh, a few shy hands going up. Okay. Well, so for those of you in the first group, congratulations. I feel like I'm speaking to the converted. I know that there's a panel of speakers coming up after this, and they will certainly have more advice and insights about how to maximize the benefits of a plan and keep it robust. For others in the room, I just have a few tips that I want to share that I have found very helpful when having these conversations and helping clients find their way. So the first and most important is to align with organizational goals. We all know that resources, time and money, particularly in the not-for-profit sector, are scarce. So if you can find a way to connect your sustainability efforts with existing initiatives, you can help your organization achieve its goals. The second is listen carefully to your colleagues. Figure out how you can help people in other parts of the organization solve their challenges, achieve their goals using sustainability practices. Similarly, seek allies from other parts of your organization. I know some of the organizations here today are quite small, but it's always good to have a team working on a project. Once you have that team, demonstrate wins. Show people how this is helping them. Really important, find a sponsor who's a senior member of the organization. That way you have a champion at the top. It could also be a member of your board. Remember this, because I know we all try to, we want to get it all done. Start small. Set some achievable goals and have clearly identifiable wins. Once you achieve those wins, celebrate the success. I'm notorious for okay, we did that, check, let's keep going. But it's good to take a breath and say, yay, good for us, just like we're doing this morning. Last and maybe most important, be authentic. Don't try to undertake efforts that don't align with your organization and aren't natural to your organization. So I want to just give you a real-life example of how these principles can produce results. About this time last year, I began to work with a local business. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with them, Evans Hotels, which operates the Bahia, the Catamaran, and the Lodge at Torrey Pines, all beautiful properties. The CEO, Robert Gleason, knew that the hotels were active in his community and they were doing good stuff, but he didn't really truly understand what they were doing. So we looked at all the areas of sustainability as I defined them at the start of the talk: environmental, employee benefits, community engagement. There was lots of stuff happening, and there were a handful of employees driving each effort, but no one had an overall picture of how the pieces fit together. After several months of really digging through materials, interviewing members of the leadership team, we compiled a comprehensive picture of the activities and the policies that they had in place. They were all over the map. At the time, I told Robert they got an A for effort and a C- for execution. So he wasn't exactly happy with that, but he understood what I was saying. So realizing that the organization was missing opportunities with all of its stakeholders, having a haphazard approach to sustainability, Robert, the CEO, decided it was time to create a plan for the hotel's sustainability and corporate social responsibility practices. We started with a manageable project, remember, start small, and brought some clarity to what was being done already. We developed metrics that captured what they are doing, created a beautiful scorecard, which I think is up on their website if you want to look at it, So they have a scorecard now to report on their metrics and articulated why each of those metrics was chosen and how it relates to the company's broader goals. So again, tying back to the organization as a whole. We prepared a presentation for the company's board of directors, and I think even Robert was a little surprised at how enthusiastically they embraced all of the recommendations. In fact, at the end of the meeting, they even told him that they wanted to take it further. So I think that's a pretty big win, don't you think? This outcome reinforced for me the importance of not just doing, but taking time to step back, look at your organization's goals and objectives on a global basis, and then make a commitment to sustainability practices that support these goals. Actively articulating your commitment, putting a stake in the ground, not only holds you accountable, but it also can inspire others to action. I just want to wrap up by challenging all of you to think about how you might start or build some momentum for a sustainability initiative at your organization. Remember, start small, align with bigger organizational goals, and find allies. Good luck. I look forward to being here next year and seeing who won the awards for 2018. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Dennis Larson. I'm with Nexus Planning and Research. This is actually my 4th year facilitating this panel and working with Jessica. One of the questions I want to ask is how many people, is this your first time being at the breakfast? Can you raise your hands? Wow, that's a really good number. What about your second time? Wow, 3rd time? 4th time? Woohoo! Okay, so we've been doing, like I said, we've been doing it for 4 years, and each time we're facilitating the panel, we want to do something a little bit different. So this time around, instead of just having the panelists come up and we just talk to them right now, we're going to incorporate an exercise. So what I want you to do is, there's like a wooden box in front of you that has a card. You can reach in and grab that. Then there's also a glass jar that has pens inside of it. So when we're following up with this commitment to sustainability, we recognize that that commitment happens at 2 levels, one at the individual level and then one at the organizational level. So this is a 2-part exercise because we want to make it as complicated as possible. So first we start with the organizational element. And the thing is, and as we recognize when Julianne, when she asked how many people had a sustainability plan, about maybe half of you raised your hands. And we recognize that to make that commitment, we have to kind of meet you in the middle. And we also have to meet you at that individual level and at that organizational level. We also recognize that some organizations are deeply entrenched in sustainability and other ones are just starting out. But within those organizations, and that's probably most everybody who's here because you're here today, you do believe in sustainability. And so there's the question of if your organization is really not, or I should say this, they don't have a sustainability plan, but you're committed to it and you believe in it, how can you really contribute to that? So the goal of the overall exercise today is for you to be able to leave and say, this is how I can set my own personal goal about making a commitment to sustainability in the organization and just push it a little bit forward. It's a little bit like what Julianne's saying, like it's make each day just a little bit better, make one little incremental step forward, all right? So if you take this card, and you'll see in the very front of it, there's gonna be a word cloud on the bottom. And what I want you to do is really just think about your organization and their commitment to sustainability. So really just circle the words in here that describe your organization's relationship with environmental sustainability. At the same time, I'd like the panelists to come up, please. So we have Jason Anderson with Cleantech. We have Jonathan Ham with PARALLAX. And by the way, I'm not going to read their bios, just in the interest of time. The bios are in the handouts that you received. And then Morgan Justice Black with San Diego, oh, she's right behind me, with San Diego Gas and Electric. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but we used to have the chairs, just the chairs that you're sitting in, not that they're bad chairs. But it was always a little bit strange that we had these small chairs that people would sit in. So now I want to thank Jessica and everyone for making like this TED Talk style where we have these really comfortable chairs. So I'm going to move over, and what I'm going to tell you right now is I was told not to talk into the mic because it's going to do that screaming sound. So if it does, I'm just going to apologize from the start. I feel like we need like a glass of wine or something. So just to follow up on where Julianne's at, I'm going to start with Jason first. We're talking about the commitment to sustainability, and we want to look at it from like a regional level, kind of an organization-wide level, kind of at a community level. So, Jason, you manage like your overall organization's like critical mission, and you lead like Smart City San Diego. Julianne talked about the importance of sustainability to employees and stakeholders, which clearly has an economic component. And I was wondering, could you address like the San Diego regional economic impact?
Sure. So again, thank you for having Cleantech San Diego here today. Jessica, thank you for your work on this. I'm not sure that I knew that we shared the same birthday. Cleantech San Diego was actually launched 10 years ago to really help the San Diego region advance the development and deployment of clean technology and renewable energies here in our greater San Diego region. Today, we're number 4 in the country in terms of our leadership around clean technology and renewable energy leadership. And a lot of that's because, actually all of that's because what's happening here in our region and obviously what's happening in the state of California. So a lot of great things happening here. Before I answer your question, I'm just going to talk really quickly about some of the great things that are happening here in San Diego, if that's okay. So first and foremost, it's no surprise we're number 1 in the country as it relates to solar installations. Meaning we have more rooftop solar installations than any other city in the country. We have about 25,000 electric vehicles on the ground here in San Diego, which is, I think is the most per capita of any city. Sorry, Morgan, if I'm stealing some of your thunder over there. We also are home to the world's largest lithium-ion battery storage facility. We have significant amount of both residential and commercial storage facilities. So a lot of great things that are happening here in our region. And what we've really tried to strive for at Cleantech San Diego and kind of this greater region is that the environmental benefits of sustainability also have economical benefits as well, and those two don't have to necessarily be at odds. And we've obviously proven that here in San Diego, and we've obviously proven that here in California. So from an economic perspective, Cleantech San Diego represents about 117 companies, nonprofits, the military, cities, the port, airport, number of different organizations that are not only developing clean or renewable technologies, but also deploying those technologies. And while most of them want to do this for the environment, or for environmental reasons, they also see significant economic reasons behind it as well. So energy efficiency and some of the things that Scott and Steve both talked about earlier. From an economic perspective, we like to think about this industry as a significant contributor to our regional economy. Today, we employ about 36,000 people in the San Diego region in the clean tech and renewable energy space. I like to say, especially now, that's more than the entire country employs in the coal industry. So we have a pretty strong and significant renewable energy industry here in San Diego. We've got about 2,000 plus companies that are doing business in the space, meaning they're developing technologies or providing solutions or services to reduce energy or water or increase electric transportation, whatever it may be. And that means it's about a $6.8 billion economic output to our region. So it's no small thing. San Diego, as you know, is obviously a leader in the life science industry. We've got a large concentration of military here. Our communications and wireless industry is strong. And from the clean tech and renewable standpoint, it's significant as well. So again, we see a lot of stuff what's happening in the environmental space here in the region, but for us, there's also a significant amount of economic opportunity as well. And when you look at the passage of climate action plans by cities around the region, including the city of San Diego, you know, they're really looking at this from an economic perspective and not just an environmental perspective. And I think that's important. I think that's pulling together a large amount of stakeholders to support these initiatives. So it's not just one or the other, but both combined.
And I was curious, how do you see the work of your members fitting into the region's climate efforts?
So it's significant. So the work of my members and the organizations that we represent, we like for them to do those projects, to have the solution, to have the technology that's helping to reduce energy usage in our region or help drive up the amount of electric vehicles or electric vehicle charging stations in the region. So our members are very keen on what's happening around climate here in San Diego because they see their technology, their solution providing those, helping those constituencies, whether they be cities or businesses, reach their goals.
Great. A question for you, Morgan. You work for an organization that promotes sustainability that has really community-wide benefits. When you implement sustainability efforts, how do you weigh the benefits to the community?
Okay. Am I on? All right. Well, for us at SDG&E, similar to what Julianne was saying, we are a company that serves all of San Diego County and a small portion of South Orange County. So we have millions of customers that are stakeholders, and they really demand more from us. They demand more than just having the lights on and having gas that fires up their stove every day. They demand a clean energy company, and they want their rates to be low, but they also want clean energy coming to their homes and businesses. So we work really hard to evaluate how we weigh those things and how we can deliver clean, reliable, and safe energy. And as you heard Scott when he started off this morning, the first thing he said was, SDG&E is working to be the cleanest, safest, and most reliable energy company in America. And clean was one of the first things out of his mouth. And so that really has been something that from the top down, our leadership has embraced as a driving core value of our company, and it's something that everyone is able to get behind, from the folks in our call center to the linemen that are going out to put in new lines, to the folks that are coming out in the next couple months to check your pilot light before you fire up your furnace for the first time. It's really something that we can all embrace.
So it seems like one of the goals of the organization is to kind of positively influence the community. So and since this is about making that commitment and helping other organizations who are kind of on the threshold do that, what kind of programs do you have, or what is that you can do to actually help some of these organizations move forward?
Sure. So we have over 4,000 employees here in our region. So one thing that we really work hard to do is to connect our employees with organizations in the community that are environmentally focused or have perhaps an environmental program that they might be interested in. So we have a green team at SDG&E that consists of employees from all over the company. Some of their jobs might be a little bit more environmentally focused than others. Other people just want to do something good for our region. So the green team puts together everything from an Earth Fair each year that brings out over 50 nonprofit organizations and organizations like the San Diego County Water Authority and the city's Think Blue program, so that employees can connect with those resources. And we're very purposeful that we put on this green team, or this Earth Fair, right in front of our cafe. So those employees that have to make their way to lunch, they have to pass by these booths, they have to learn more, and they have to get involved. And then in addition to these offerings like our Earth Fair or our WaterWise Day, we also have a number of programs that our employees are deeply involved in, whether it was the Eco-Choice program that Scott mentioned, the 100% renewable energy program, or our battery storage facility that Jason mentioned, the largest lithium-ion battery storage facility in the world. We're working on all these really environmentally innovative projects, and so employees get to embrace that and feel passionate about that, and then outwardly, they get to share with others and really have that commitment by saying, hey, I'm working on this project that's really cool, that's, kick butt, that is driving our region's clean energy future, and, let's embrace that.
Thank you. Question for Jonathan is, as we move from kind of like this regional scale to this community perspective to the individual firm, I wanted to you can kind of give us your feedback or give insight on how an individual at an organization, they can help push sustainability, kind of push the needle.
Yeah, absolutely. As an individual, excuse me, I think there's a few things that are within your control and a few things that are out of your control. And this is just going by experience with the companies we work with. And that, if sustainability is really core to your business, like a natural resources business, it's going to be a lot easier to push through. And then B, if leadership is really bought in, selling it up the chain is going to be a whole lot easier. So I've seen that, and I've seen it flip-flop where the leadership changes, then all of a sudden the sustainability program goes away, and then the new leadership comes in, and it's important to that person, or maybe it's the shareholders, and then all of a sudden the program gets put back in place. But as an individual, and I could see from a show of hands that it appeared as though there weren't that many sustainability programs in place with the organizations you guys work at. A few good stories, but I've one of a business here in town, and there was a guy we worked with, and he was an engineer, like kind of a typical engineer, and the business was pretty big, maybe like 200,000 or $200 million business with probably like 500 employees. And he was super passionate about sustainability, and he added it on as like an additional part of the work that he was doing. So while he had his engineer duties by day, he did the sustainability stuff, we'll call it, at night. And he worked on that, say, for a year, for 2 years, and he really operationalized it. So he put a plan in place, operationalized it, and then lo and behold, slowly but surely, the leadership started seeing that there could be cost savings with the work that the plan that he put in place. So that was happening. At the same time, we helped him put together like a report around all the sustainability efforts that he had put in place, and the report was actually showing the impact that it was making. And the sales team took the report and they used it to sell through, they sell products, obviously, to kind of like a Home Depot size business in Europe, and it was like the deciding factor. So they got this big contract that's for X millions of dollars, but they actually won the work because of the sustainability efforts that the business had in place. So after all that happened, which was over the course of like, I don't know, 6 months or a year or so, lo and behold, he went from being an engineer to they actually carved out a position, sustainability director, sustainability manager, but it was really shown like in the numbers. So I feel like as an individual, think about the organization you're working at or working for and how core is sustainability, what's the leadership look like, and then if you're super passionate about it, you just kind of need to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty, and it'll pan out if you can actually make some things happen.
So just a little bit more, go into a little more detail on that. When you talk about if you have an individual who's at an organization and they want to kind of push forward so they get the organization to make the commitment because they've already done that, they're trying to balance the economic and the social and the environmental co-benefits of all this. Can you maybe talk once again about, and you mentioned this a little bit about recognize what the organization, what their goals are, but do you have any like specific strategy you provide for someone to approach their leadership if they don't have a sustainability plan?
Well, I think it needs to always relate back to the business. So you need to think about what's the actual, the business strategy, and potentially you would hopefully get like this 2-5 year business strategy from leadership, and then you would go back and tie the sustainability goals to what the actual business strategy was. And we see time and time again of these like bolt-on sustainability programs where the CEO is passionate about panda bears, and so they give, all this money towards XYZ, and it's got nothing to actually do with the business. So I think that what's really core, or what's key and what's important, is that when you're thinking about what to do, it needs to tie back into the business strategy that you can prove benefits, and I could ramble on about what all those benefits could be as opposed to just financial, as it relates to the business, and bring that as the business case to the leadership.
Okay, that makes sense. A follow-up question for Jason is, you work with numerous companies within the region that their business model is actually supporting the sustainability efforts, but I'm curious, within those organizations, have you even seen some of those organizations change their own individual approach to sustainability?
For sure. I mean, I think one of the, I would say probably one of the biggest ones would be Qualcomm and some of the work that they're doing on site throughout their campuses. So obviously they provide a suite of wireless services and kind of at the core of that, but in looking at some of their sustainability plans and what they were doing on campus, I mean, I've really seen Qualcomm evolve over the years to where they have significant amounts of solar on their campus. They're doing some self-generation on their campuses. They have what they call the smart campus, where they're utilizing technologies to help them manage their overall energy consumption. So while they're providing these technologies to outside parties, they're walking the talk, right, or walking the walk, whatever that saying is, so that they are doing things on campus while at the same time they're trying to sell those services and sell those technologies to outside parties.
Sounds good. And for Morgan, kind of a similar question is at SDG&E, have you had some programs or some areas of the organization that have basically, I don't want to say that it's more or less progressive, but ones that are more leaders and that other people have learned from them? Or is it a top-down approach, or how did it start out?
I mean, I think that there's always, leadership. Like, we have a chief environmental officer, and so he's often driving our sustainability goals forward. And we actually worked collaboratively with Jonathan to put together an environmental scorecard and some other things that are going to help us report more frequently internally on how we're doing in certain things. And for us, I mean, we have renewable energy that we're delivering. We have electric vehicle charging stations. We have a lot of infrastructure that's very easy for us to measure. Okay, we've installed X amount of charging stations, or we have this X amount of solar. But also, employees really resonate with learning from other employees and seeing what they're doing. So we've actually implemented really small things, like for our Water Wise Day, we had something called, it was WWD, or What We Do. And it was, we went around to employees and said, hey, what are you doing to save water at home or at the office? And we really empowered them to tell their story. And so instead of just putting together some fact sheets or having a little booth with information, we were able to get those employees to put together some photos. They went around their homes and took photos of, you know, maybe they took out their lawn and put in water-wise plants and, you know, little drainage culverts, or they put in all sorts of different things, rain barrels. And so they got to stand there with all their photos, and employees could come around and learn from them. And they, you know, people resonated with it. People were like, oh, you know, Bob over there, he's a mechanic at one of our base locations, and he has nothing to do with sustainability in his normal day job, but at his house, he did all of this. And so being able to learn from each other and really empower our employees to tell their story internally, I think really helps to make the difference and get everyone moving in the same direction.
So I have a follow-up question. This is actually the last question, but it's something for Jonathan. Is a few years ago, we had Brendan Reed, who was with the City of Chula Vista as their sustainability manager, and now he's with the airport. And he talked about the importance of like going and having goals and trying to reach for those goals, but also having to kind of market those goals and communicate those goals both internally, because you do want to get the rewards and have people understand how important it is, and also kind of get that recognition for that. So I want to ask you, what's the best way to communicate those goals within the organization and also outside of the organization so that you kind of keep the momentum going?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is really the business that we're in the communications business. I think A goes back to the kind of the key priorities of what's the key priorities of the business, and then identifying all the different stakeholders. And you mentioned employees, and that's a big one that often overlooked. If you're talking with marketing folks, they're concerned with customers, but your employees can be your biggest brand ambassadors, and unrelated to sustainability, that's just the case through and through. So what's priority of the business? Who are all the different audiences? You know, customers, communities, partners, investors, and then what's important, what do they actually want to hear as it relates to your business? And for us, to be specific about it, is we would develop messaging specific for our key priorities as it relates to each audience. So how are we going to talk to each audience? And the tone and what we say should be tweaked accordingly. So we would develop the messaging for each audience, and then we would develop a communications plan. And the plan is, what tactics do we need to do to communicate our message to engage with these different audiences on these key priorities? And we'd make a plan for 12 months, for 18 months, and then every 6 months we'd go back and kind of reevaluate it. So it's really determining like what's priority, what is priority, who is priority, and how would you communicate to each person in each way.
Great. So that wraps it up for the panel, but we are not done quite yet, because we're going to do the second half of the exercise. So if you could just stay up here with me. If everyone pick up the card that you had, that you picked up in the beginning, and then turn it over. So the other side, there are two questions, and these are less about the organization and much more about the individual. And the first one is it's looking at the co-benefits to sustainability. And so what I'd like you to do is just circle those, describe the types of co-benefits you could get from a sustainability program. And so this may be a little bit more focused on the people who don't have one, but if you already have one, then you can circle those that you already have. So you can see your choices are: you can save money to reduce costs, support your mission, process efficiencies, there's community engagement, employee engagement and retention, as Julianne mentioned earlier. You want to enhance a guest experience, and there's also facilities improvement, and there could be many others that you can fill in on the blank line. All right, and then there's the second exercise, and this comes from Jessica. This is the sustainability challenge. So if you think about yourself within your organization, think about you as the individual in terms of what you can do. You can make the statement of what can I personally commit to doing to help my organization's sustainability efforts. All right, so that's it for the panel. Thank you very much for coming out. Jessica, do you want to come back up here? She does want to come back up here. So I'm going to invite Jessica back up here to close us out. So thank you once again. I want to thank our panelists for coming out. You can give them a hand, please. Thank you.
And for those of you who know me, if there's ever an opportunity to fill blank space with my voice, I will find a way to do it. So yes, I do want to come back up. I just wanted to thank all of you again for being with us this morning and for another year. There's a few hands that have been here for all 4 years, so that's really spectacular. Warms our hearts to see, and it's because we're able to get so much momentum out of this group here. So thank you. Thank you to our honored guests who came, all of our speakers, our panelists. I think we have long lists of things that we took from both Julianne and the panel today. I also wanted to thank two groups in particular who helped beautify our room today. So if you haven't already, there's beautiful posters of artwork in the back, and those are courtesy of the Climate Science Alliance, and Amber is back here. She can talk a little bit more about that. And the Climate Science Alliance is a partnership of local scientists, managers, educators, artists, and businesses. Is there anything else that we can add to that list, Amber? That are working collaboratively to build resilience in our communities on climate change. And then on your tables, the beautiful plants that we have are borrowed from Good Earth Plants here in San Diego. They're gorgeous live centerpieces that are helping to create a healthy start to our morning, so we have healthier indoor environments. So thank you to those two groups. I hope you all enjoyed the networking and the discussion on stage, and I hope to connect with you over the next year. Have a great morning, and happy Halloween too, since we're getting close to that.